Marvel's new god, the man who outsmarted the Avengers. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 51. Vibranium is indeed very contained. Although Banner believed Lin Fan, he also agreed with what Tony said. Vibranium cannot form vein resources. Because according to their research, vibranium should be an extraterrestrial meteorite, so there can never be many of them. But thinking that the person who spoke was Lin Fan, Banner couldn't help but hesitate. What if? You haven't seen it, doesn't mean you haven't seen it. Also did not expose the meaning of Wakanda, Lin Fan said indifferently. As far as I know, there are more than 100 pounds of vibranium on the market. You should have heard of an arms dealer named Ulysses Crow, right? How do you know? Hearing this, Tony suddenly exclaimed. He was a little shocked at this time. Because the vibranium in his hand was purchased from the other party because of the relationship of the military. But at this time, Lin Fan actually knew Ulysses Crow. It's not a coincidence, it's not. If Lin Fan was confident because of Ulysses Crow, then he had too much say in this matter. The other party has only dozens of pounds of vibranium in his hand. There is no talk of the so-called vibranium vein. Now Lin Fan is ugly. Thinking of this, Tony suddenly said triumphantly. Forgot to tell you that my vibranium was bought from Ulysses Claw. Don't you want to say that he has a vibranium vein? How else? Lin Fan was non-committal and asked rhetorically. Even the military can't get enough vibranium, where do you think he got it? As soon as these words came out, Tony was suddenly speechless. Vibranium is a priceless thing. Even if Ulysses Crow is an arms dealer, is he not more powerful than the state apparatus on his own? But to say that there are vibranium veins, this is also something he can't believe. You know? Tony still retorted with a hard mouth. I know everything. The corners of Lin Fan's mouth raised slightly, ignoring Tony's temptation at all. He sneered to himself. Ulysses Crow, this guy is very cunning. He claims to the outside world that he only has dozens of pounds of vibranium, but in fact, the vibranium he holds in his hand is at least 300 caddies. If you want, you can have a black eat. That guy isn't a good guy anyway. Lin Fan said instigatingly. With Tony's strength, coupled with Banner's help, it is simple to deal with the Ulysses Crow. And he doesn't feel any guilt about it. 300 pounds? Ignoring Lin Fan's suggestion, Tony was stunned at this time. Even Banner on the side opened his mouth wide. What is the concept of 300 caddies? Strong as the captain of the United States in the 70s of the last century. The vibranium shield used is only made by mixing a little vibranium. Even the nano armor drawings designed by Tony. What he expected at the beginning was that adding 3 or 5 pounds of vibranium would be enough to increase the performance of the armor by 30%. But Lin Fan said that Ulysses Crow held 300 pounds of vibranium? If only I could grab it all. A pair of nano armor made entirely of vibranium, its strength is simply unimaginable. I'm afraid that even a nuclear bomb may not be able to destroy the armor defense. Thinking of that situation, Tony's whole body suddenly became excited, and he hated to find Ulysses Crow immediately. But soon he was forced to calm down. What you said is true. Tony looked at Lin Fan and asked in a deep voice. Believe it or not. Lin Fan shrugged his shoulders and was non-committal. Anyway, he knows that vibranium is inexhaustible, and 300 pounds of vibranium should be sent to a Shunshui favor. As for whether Tony wants it or not, it has nothing to do with him. Phew. Taking a deep breath, Tony's expression changed. Vibranium, of course he wants. Especially 300 caddies. However, Ulysses Crow is so cunning, it is obviously very difficult to deal with. But if you can get Lin Fan's help. Tony couldn't help but look at Lin Fan. But before he could speak, Lin Fan waved his hand and said. I'm not available. I'm going to travel far away in 2 days, and it's not certain what to come back from. Going away? Tony was stunned and asked curiously. Where are you going? Secret. Lin Fan didn't explain, and directly said to Banner on the side. Isn't there still Banner? With the help of the Hulk, it is not easy to deal with the Ulysses Crow. By the way, you guys remember to watch out for that guy's robotic arm. Although he was too lazy to intervene, Lin Fan still mentioned something. He didn't want Tony to capsize in the gutter. Such a good dog household, he still counts on the other party to help him make money, who eats and drinks who lives, when something happens. Hey, okay. Tony nodded helplessly when he heard this, but he kept Lin Fan's reminder in his heart. Being able to be mentioned by Lin Fan on his own initiative is enough to prove its danger. They have to be careful. And if he could, he would have to build a pair of armor for Banner, or even the Hulk in Banner's body. He has already thought of the name, just call it Anti-Hulk Warframe. Soon the group of three began to act. If you want to deal with Ulysses Claw, the necessary preparation is indispensable, and the nano warframe is the key to their victory. Tony is ready to build himself a pair of nano vibranium armor. As for the Anti-Hulk Warframe, then you can only use ordinary metal first. And with Lin Fan's help, the process went very smoothly. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, 2 days later. Episode 52. With Lin Fan's help, Tony and Banner have already put Zenfin into the base metal. Then they want to punize the composite metal. After that, with the help of nanometal, it is possible to further create nano warframes. But these things had nothing to do with Lin Fan. Saying goodbye to Tony and the two, Lin Fan left alone and went straight to Xavier Genius Academy. This time, he did not have the ability to use the Imperial Sky again. After all, this is a normal trip, and there is no need to deliberately cover your whereabouts. And he always has to give others a chance. Airport departure halls. Glancing at someone in the seat obliquely, Lin Fan's eyes flashed with a different color, but on the surface, he was silent. It seems that the black brine has not given up monitoring me. Lin Fan secretly sneered, unimpressed. S.H.I.E.L.D. was nothing more than that in his eyes. Unless it was the Black Egg summoning Captain Marvel, even if he went out, he couldn't help him at all. And he also knew very well why the other party sent someone to follow him. He hasn't been to the company these days. This also caused Natasha to be unable to monitor him closely to obtain the corresponding intelligence. It seems that someone has been waiting a little anxiously. Master, do you want me to create some accident and get rid of this stalker? The sly voice of the Red Queen came from the earphones. But when Lin Fan heard this, he shook his head and said, "No need." Well, that's a shame. The voice of the Red Queen of disappointment sounded. Lin Fan directly ignored this. With Honghaoshen's unafraid nature, I really want to let her act recklessly, and I don't know how much chaos she will make. This is also the reason why after getting red, he has not done anything. Too powerful artificial intelligence is also a double-edged sword. I did not look at the supreme wisdom of the Kree Empire, and even became the master of the country, but it did not bring tranquility and peace. Soon the plane set off for Westchester. And almost at the same time. Director, Lin Fan got on the plane to Westchester. The purpose is not clear. The man who followed Lin Fan looked at the plane and reported in a deep voice. Well, got it. A majestic voice came from the other side of the communication. And at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters. Nick Fury sat in his seat, his expression unrestrained and unbearable, as if his face was paralyzed. Coulson on the opposite side stood silently and asked hesitantly. Director, Lin Fan is a powerful person, I think it's better not to send someone to follow him, right? I don't want you to feel, I want me to feel. Nick Fury looked at Coulson coldly and said in a deep voice. Any dangerous element must be under the supervision of S.H.I.E.L.D., otherwise how can we protect the safety of residents and the country? But. What more Coulson wanted to say? That's it. But before he could speak, Nick Fury interrupted directly. He turned to ask about something else. How did you investigate the disappearance of Bruce Banner, and how did he get involved with Tony Stark? Aha. Coulson was a little embarrassed when he heard this. Tony Stark doesn't come out at all, our people can't get in, we can't even see the face of the target, I think. As he spoke, Coulson met Nick Fury's gaze. He immediately smiled and changed his words. I think Tony Stark most likely took a fancy to Bruce Banner's scientific research ability. Nick Fury was non-committal. For Bruce Banner, it would have been among his chosen targets. For a certain plan called the Avengers. It's a pity that he just sent Natasha to try to contact Bruce Banner, but something happened in the middle. Bruce Banner was taken away by a third party and his whereabouts are unknown. Until Stark Industries publicly declared the gods. Only then did he know that the person who shot was not someone else, but Tony Stark. This would also explain who has the ability to take Bruce Banner. After all, with the combat power of the big guy in the other party's body, if an ordinary superpower comes, it is estimated that he will only be deflated. Now that Bruce Banner has been recruited by Tony Stark, it can be regarded as saving him some trouble. It even facilitated his plans. Because Tony Stark is also on his recruiting ranks. At that time, with the chips in his hand, he may be able to directly invite the other two to join at the same time, which can be regarded as killing two birds with one stone. I don't know why, Lin Fan's figure appeared in his mind. If you can recruit this guy. How is Lin Fan's identity investigation? Nick Fury asked instead. No news. Coulson was even more embarrassed and said with a wry smile. The only news I found out is that not long ago, Tony Stark asked people to help apply for identity identification, and the party was Lin Fan. The information above shows that Lin Fan is from Huaxia and is 25 years old this year. After our analysis, the identity information that Lin Fan actively exposed should be true. Lin Fan, this person is likely to be a superpower of Huaxia. I just don't know if the other party is alone or from an organization. Coulson directly explained what he knew. Nick Fury didn't speak. After some silence, he said in a deep voice. Let Natasha find a way to speed up the progress of the mission. I don't care what method she uses, I must get more information about Lin Fan. Yes, Chief. Episode 53. A few hours later, the plane arrived in Westchester. Lin Fan took a taxi to leave. And behind the taxi, an ordinary car follows, but very well camouflaged. It's a pity that in front of Lin Fan, these disguises are extremely deliberate. The Red Queen said with even more disdainful mockery. Master, they are too obvious, are the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. so dish? Who knows, maybe. Lin Fan was non-committal. Maybe in Nick Fury's opinion, he just wanted to know his whereabouts. So it doesn't matter if it's discovered. Lin Fan didn't care much about this. In the face of the absolute strength gap, all intrigues and tricks are paper tigers, vulnerable to attack. Taxis arrived in the town of Westchester very quickly. Professor X's ancestral home is here. In order to take in the mutant children, Professor X transformed the ancestral home and founded what is now Xavier Genius College. It's just that from the outside, this is just an ordinary boarding school. Lin Fan got out of the car and went straight to the gate of the manor. Click. And almost at the same time, the tall iron gate opened. Professor X and others are already waiting here. Obviously, Professor X knew Lin Fan's whereabouts as soon as possible, and waited at the door in advance. This can also show that Professor X attaches great importance to Lin Fan. Mr. Lin, long time no see. Professor X greeted with a smile. Professor. Lin Fan and Jean Gallet looked at each other and nodded with a smile. The group walked straight towards the academy. The iron gate then slowly closed. At the end of the road, agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. followed, but as soon as they arrived, the whole person fell into sluggishness. Immediately afterwards, he shook his body and drove back the same way. Memories of today have all disappeared out of thin air. Teaching good means, but in fact, there is no need at all. This will attract the attention of some people. The corners of Lin Fan's mouth, who was walking, raised slightly, and he reminded indifferently. He sensed Professor X's small movements. But he knew very well that it was useless and could even arouse someone's suspicion. Nick Fury's guy is very cunning. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for reminding. When Professor X heard this, he shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. The academy has gone through several twists and turns, I have no choice but to do it, and it is enough to have one less trouble. I hope so. Lin Fan nodded and was non-committal. The people around him listened curiously, and they were surprised in their hearts, not knowing what happened. Only Jean Grey looked thoughtful. Soon the group came to the living room. Under Professor X's gesture, everyone sat down separately, and Jean Grey filled tea for everyone. I'm glad Mr. Lin can come to the academy, welcome. Professor X picked up the teacup and looked sincere. Lin Fan smiled and waved his hand. The professor is polite. The two exchanged pleasantries, which was also harmonious. But Professor X could see that Lin Fan's estrangement was just polite politeness. Seeing this, he simply stopped talking nonsense and said bluntly. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for saving Jean before. According to the agreement, I will let those students teach you for a day, but... Saying that, Professor X looked a little embarrassed. He said embarrassedly. But you also know that ability is everyone's secret, and it is even more privacy. There are always people who are not willing to make their abilities public. So if anyone doesn't want to. I also hope Mr. Lin doesn't mind. But including me, Aurora has already promised to give each other, and there will definitely be no secrets. Professor X said very sincerely. And this is also a fact, Lin Fan is not disgusted. He nodded without mind. It doesn't matter, being able to learn the professor's spiritual power is already the biggest gain for me, as for the others. Speaking, Lin Fan's tone paused. A look of disdain flashed on his face, and he said indifferently. Not everyone is worth learning from. Thank you, Mr. Lin, for understanding. Professor X was relieved to hear this. He was really worried that Lin Fan would be dissatisfied, and then attack them. At that time, a conflict is inevitable. And with Lin Fan's terrifying strength, in the end, all of them would undoubtedly lose, and the consequences would be unimaginable. Now that Lin Fan was so understanding, he was more and more grateful in his heart. This young man is really outstanding. Then I'll come first, Professor X said, his expression gradually becoming serious. He began to tell his story. From his youth, because of an accidental awakening ability, until later familiarization with the whole process of ability, including his entire understanding of spiritual power today. And in this process, Jean Gallet and the others listened silently, and couldn't help but sigh. I didn't expect the professor to be so miserable before. Just like all of them. Because of awakening superpowers, he was regarded as a monster by his relatives and friends and was displaced. As a result, some people become criminals who are bullied by others. Some people have been reduced to experimental products. And they were lucky to meet the professor, join the college, and receive meticulous care and teaching. For a while, Jean Grey and the others looked at Professor X with reverence. But at this time, Lin Fan did not pay attention to these. Just because in his ears, an icy system prompt sounded quietly. Episode 54. Ding, the host listened to Professor X share his experience, and his understanding burst out against the sky, and his heart realized. Ding, you have created a new ability, Spirit Dispatch. System prompts sound one after another. Spirit Dispatcher? When Lin Fan heard this, his eyes couldn't help but light up. This ability is very familiar to him. In another world, the Spirit Binding General is one of the 8 miracles, and the effect is to manipulate the soul and even devour. All spirit bodies that exist in spiritual form are within the control of power. At the same time, it can also devour spirit bodies to strengthen itself. Compared to Professor X's mental power, the spiritual power will be more powerful. And this ability is also the most suitable for Lin Fan now. Not to mention the effect of manipulating the soul. Just devouring the spirit body to strengthen itself could make Lin Fan constantly stronger. The key is where the spirit body to be devoured comes from. It seems that when I go back this time, I will think back to the Marvel plot and see if there is a suitable experience package. Secretly groaning, Lin Fan was silent on the surface. He looked at Professor X with a look of embarrassment and said, "Thank you, Professor, for your teaching. This time I have gained a lot. It is already worth the trip." What? Hearing this, everyone was immediately dumbfounded. They were still lamenting life, and they were stunned. What did Lin Fan mean by this? Harvested? Could it be that just listening to the professor look back on the past, Lin Fan learned spiritual power? How is it possible? What an international joke. Just pretend. Among the crowd, Scott sneered secretly. He thought with great disdain in his heart. If you can learn it by listening to it, isn't the professor a waste? It's just pretending. Can he really learn the abilities of others? Jean Greyfang's eyes flashed with surprise. Unlike other people's doubts, she looked at Lin Fan, who looked indifferent, and couldn't help but think of her experience that day. Lin Fan used the power of the Phoenix to help her reborn in Nirvana. But isn't the power of the Phoenix unique to her? If it was a coincidence, she would never believe it, unless coupled with the strange conditions that Lin Fan put forward to the professor. As clever as Jean Gallet, as if he had already guessed something, his gaze towards Lin Fan became more and more surprised. Can anyone really learn all the superpowers? Lin Fan, you. Professor X also looked at Lin Fan in disbelief. He was also curious about Lin Fan's purpose. But he knew what to ask and what not to ask, so he never took the initiative to pry into each other's privacy. But Lin Fan's reaction at this time really shocked him. Is this young man really a genius? Huh. Facing everyone's strange gazes, Lin Fan smiled and said nothing. Wood shows in the forest, the wind will destroy it. Although he is not afraid of the target of Professor X and others, when it comes to his own whole cards, of course, he can't just publicize it everywhere. On the contrary, letting others guess wildly can avoid some unnecessary trouble. After all, only the unknown is the most frightening. That's right, Professor. As if thinking of something, Lin Fan changed the topic and said, I heard what you said just now. I used to be partners with Magneto and the witch, and I happened to meet the witch some time ago. I wonder if you are interested in the news of the witch. Lin Fan looked at Professor X with a smile. Please also Mr. Lin to speak up. Professor X hurriedly asked. Since they parted ways, he and Eric had never seen each other again. I didn't expect to learn about Ruiwen from Lin Fan's mouth. He suddenly wanted to know what the other party was doing. With Eric's wanton nature, since he sent Raven out, he must have some purpose and intention. It's so. Lin Fan didn't talk nonsense. He directly told the encounter with the witch, including some speculation in his mind. Looking at Professor X's solemn expression, he said indifferently. Osborne Industries is very researched about genetic engineering, and if I'm not mistaken, they should be working on variant genes. Not possible, definitely. Professor X was silent for a moment and said in a deep voice. It's not a secret. The military has already targeted us many times in order to form a squad of superpowers. Including the last time Qin had an accident, it was because of the military's targeting. They've developed a potion that can curb mutant genes. I think Eric's purpose should be to develop a counter-elixir, and it is even more likely that the situation will be even more serious. Mr. Lin, although your strength is strong, you still have to be careful. Professor X cautioned with a reminder. Whether it's a genetic inhibitor for the military, or what Eric wants to do, it's a potential threat. They are also superpowered, and they will not be able to stand on the sidelines. And some people will not let them go. In Professor X's opinion, Lin Fan is also a superpower, and he must also be careful. As the so-called clear gun is easy to dodge, Dark Arrow is difficult to prevent, nothing more. Thanks for the reminder. Lin Fan nodded and was non-committal. He is not a genetic mutation, but a bloodline awakening, which are two completely different situations. So Professor X's worries are completely superfluous. Moreover, his ability is not only magnetic field control. Death foreknowledge. Law is heaven and earth. Arrest the spirit. With these 3 whole cards in hand, no one can really target him. Unless it's a bald mage. Koichi, meow meow? Episode 55. Professor, I'm quite curious about your academy, can I walk around? After talking about business, Lin Fan asked to visit. Professor X nodded immediately when he heard this. Of course you can. Saying that, he looked at Jean Grey and said with a smile. Jean, since Mr. Lin wants to visit, you should take him around, but you must not neglect the distinguished guest. Yes, Professor. Jean Grey smiled and agreed. In the face of Professor X's orders, she did not resist, but was willing. The Storm Girl and the others on the side looked at it with a smile. Only Scott's face was very ugly. Looking at the backs of Lin Fan and Jean Grey, he really wanted to say something, but in the end he had nothing to say. Scott. At this moment, Professor X's helpless voice sounded. Mr. Lin is kind to us, you shouldn't be hostile to him, and besides, there are some things that you can't do as you want. Teach me. Scott's heart sank, and he immediately wanted to defend. But Professor X waved his hand. I have always cultivated you as a successor, but your impulsive nature really needs to be changed. After speaking, Professor X directly controlled the wheelchair and left. Storm Girl and the others also left silently. They also saw Scott's careful thinking, but could not do anything. After all, like Scott, Jean is also their comrade and partner. They cannot take sides over either. Let's just say that everything is left to fate. Scott stood in place, his expression fickling. After a long time, he sighed dejectedly. Maybe she's really just my luxury. Meanwhile, the other side. Led by Jean Grey, the two walked side by side and toured everywhere in the academy. Looking at the group of students in the academy, Lin Fan chuckled. The professor is really kind, he sacrificed too many things for these students, it's a pity. The professor is indeed a good person. Jean Grey nodded thoughtfully, agreeing with this very much. But hearing what Lin Fan didn't finish, she asked. Pity what? It's a pity that he is too kind. Lin Fan shook his head and said in an indifferent tone. We have an old saying in Huaxia, it is called that people are good to be bullied, horses are good to be ridden, and kindness is for their own people. For outsiders, even enemies, the only way to fight violence is violence. Fighting violence with violence is Lin Fan's credo. In this dangerous world, only absolute strength can guarantee its own rights and interests. Didn't you see how tragic the ending of the mutants in X-Men was? Almost slaughtered by the Sentinels. If it weren't for traveling through time and restarting the future, I'm afraid that mutants would cease to exist. Not to mention that the main tone of this world is still Marvel. It's a world of the laws of the jungle. In the face of absolute strength, the billions of living beings in the entire universe can wipe out half of them with just one snap of their fingers. How ridiculous and cruel. Lin Fan didn't want to become any of those 50%. Strength? Jean Grey heard Lin Fan's voice. She actually felt that way, too. Take herself. If it weren't for Lin Fan's help, I'm afraid she would have died long ago and become a puppet of the Black Phoenix. Even now, they are under threat from the military. That hateful bastard named Smart. As long as the academy exists for one day, the other party will not stop targeting them, and the dangerous moment will come again. Phew. Taking a deep breath, Jean Grey paused. She looked directly at Lin Fan and said earnestly. Lin Fan, can you do me a favor? Please. You say. Lin Fan did not agree, but he did not refuse. Please help me become stronger. Jean Grey bowed 90 degrees and was very sincere. And Lin Fan also enjoyed some beautiful scenery. That beautiful figure, with the movement of Jean Grey flashed away, it was really bottomless. Ahem. With a light cough, Lin Fan lifted Jean Grey up. The two continued to walk. Feeling the earnest gazes of the beautiful people around him, he said indifferently. I actually can't help you anything, and with your current situation, as long as you keep improving the power of the Phoenix. Nope. Not enough. Jean Grey shook her head without hesitation. I want more. I don't have time to get stronger slowly. Well. Lin Fan thought thoughtfully when he heard this. Jean Grey's request, he was not unable to agree. This is a good sign for the future. Just like the Hulk. If he can grow up, he may also get a lot of benefits from the other party. Didn't you see that he just now gained a new ability because of Professor X? The capabilities of the system are beyond doubt. Secretly groaning, Lin Fan showed a smile and bowed. Since you have sincerely requested, then I agree to this matter, but I don't guarantee how much you can learn. It's okay, that's enough. Jean Grey smiled, bright and moving. Her phoenix eyes looked directly at Lin Fan, and an inexplicable emotion flowed in it. The two looked at each other, and Jean Grey lowered her head embarrassedly. She whispered. Thank you, Lin Fan. You are a good person. Lin Fan? Episode 56. As Lin Fan visited the entire academy, he witnessed many different kinds of superpowers. The expected system prompt also sounds. Ding, the host witnessed the all-encompassing nature of superpowers, and the understanding burst against the sky, and felt something. Ding, congratulations to the host for comprehending the new ability, Wind Queen Chi Gate. Chiman after the wind? Lin Fan was a little surprised when he heard this. This just learned to detach the spirit, and then came the Wind Queen's Chiman. Could it be that today is the home of the 8 wonders? Perhaps the original 8 amazing skills are not strong, but with the blessing of the system, these abilities have been greatly improved. Its main feature is that there is no upper limit to its capabilities. Just like the spirit binding will be able to strengthen the soul infinitely. And the Wind Queen Chi Gate obtained at this time is also a very powerful special ability. The so-called Wind Back Chi Door is actually to create a valve space. This is somewhat akin to a domain-like existence. Being in the valve space, the caster can control the changes of everything in the world, and even achieve the effect of stagnation in time and space. The enemy will be absolutely invincible, while the enemy will be absolutely weakened. Simply put, I am invincible in the field. It's really simple and rude. After reading the ability introduction, Lin Fan couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This ability is really too strong. Especially for him, it can be said that it is a huge improvement. The strong will always be strong. Lin Fan simply shouldn't be too satisfied with this, okay? What's wrong, Lin Fan? What are you laughing at? Is there anything strange on my face? At this moment, Jean Grey's embarrassed voice sounded. She said and reached out and touched her face. Originally, the two were about to return, but suddenly Lin Fan stared at her and smiled, which made her a little overwhelmed. Ahem. Lin Fan returned to his senses, coughed lightly, and said seriously. What, I just want to be happy, don't get me wrong, well, that's it. Saying that, Lin Fan didn't care if Jean Grey believed it or not. He walked ahead and headed straight for Professor X's office. The purpose of the trip has been achieved, and it is time to leave. Jean Grey looked at Lin Fan's back and couldn't help but puff out her mouth. This guy is really insincere. Lie and don't make drafts. However, she couldn't figure out what Lin Fan was laughing at just now, but it was a pity that someone didn't want to explain it at all. And her telepathic ability was completely ineffective for Lin Fan. So she couldn't guess Lin Fan's mind at all. What a strange man. Muttering in her heart, Jean Grey hurriedly caught up with Lin Fan. The two soon arrived at Professor X's office. After explaining his intentions, Lin Fan said goodbye to Professor X and his group, and prepared to return the same way. But as soon as he walked out of the office, Jean Grey chased him out. Hey, Lin Fan, wait for me. Huh? Lin Fan raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. Is there something going on with you? Hearing this, Jean Grey rolled her eyes angrily. But she quickly explained. Lin Fan, have you forgotten what you promised me? Did you just leave? Boo-hoo. Lin Fan suddenly forgot about this stubble. But then he shrugged his shoulders and said without guilt. Sorry, I forgot. Jean Grey. Seeing Lin Fan so light, she couldn't help but feel a little angry. This guy is really abominable. But in order to improve her strength, she resisted the urge to punch Lin Fan, and said with her eyes open. So Lin Fan, are you still willing to help me improve my strength? Of course you can. Lin Fan nodded indifferently and immediately walked slowly towards the outside. Seeing this, Jean Grey asked a little anxiously. Hey, didn't you say yes? Lin Fan, why are you leaving again? Where are you going? Cultivation. Lin Fan was concise. When Jean Grey heard this, she quickly trotted up and chased after her. The two left one after the other. And inside the office, Professor X sensed Lin Fan's departure, shook his head helplessly, and said in a low voice. Lin Fan, this person, mysterious. It's okay if it's just friends, but I hope the piano doesn't sink deeper and deeper. Meanwhile, the other side. Lin Fan left the academy directly with Jean Grey. Since he promised to help the other party improve his strength, he naturally would not backtrack. But how to teach is a problem. Jean Grey's current strength is very strong, especially with the power of the Phoenix, and she is already on the verge of promotion. As long as she goes one step further, Jean Grey can compare with Professor X and Magneto. It is even possible to surpass the latter in one fell swoop. From this, you can see the demon of Jean Grey's talent, and it is no wonder that the blackened Jean Grey can single-handedly create the destruction of the mutant race. Lin Fan thought about it and thought of a suitable candidate in his heart. What's faster than leveling up big bosses? It just so happened that Lin Fan was also curious about whether certain characters would appear in this diverse Marvel world. Westchester Airport. Lin Fan, why are we going to Egypt? That's too far, right? Jean Grey asked curiously as she took the ticket. Cultivation. Lin Fan was concise and too lazy to explain. Some things are too much to say. And about the matter of the apocalypse, he himself has not yet decided. What if he says it and is slapped in the face? That's right, the character that Lin Fan thought of was the Apocalypse. One of the original villain bosses of the X-Men. Episode 57. It stands to reason that the X-Men have appeared, and the Apocalypse should exist, but this world is based on Marvel after all. Therefore, Lin Fan did not dare to guarantee whether the plot would change. In the face of Jean Grey's questioning, he just perfunctory and did not have the idea of explaining. Well, okay. Jean Grey was a little helpless when she heard this. Looking at Lin Fan's appearance, he made it clear that he didn't want to say anything more to her. In this regard, she is not good to break the casserole and ask the end. After all, it is already a great favor that people are willing to help her. What is she dissatisfied with? However, she was still curious about why she went to Egypt. Can't you go to Egypt to see the pyramids? While the two were waiting to board the plane, a person in the distance quietly observed Lin Fan and the two. Strong as Jean Grey instantly sensed that someone was watching. Lin Fan, we are being watched. She immediately said to Lin Fan. I know. Lin Fan said quietly and directly without scruples. It's someone from S.H.I.E.L.D., don't worry about him. Lin Fan, you? Jean Grey was shocked. Not to mention that Lin Fan knew that he was being watched, but he was indifferent. How can you be so unscrupulous? Speaking in front of people, isn't it clear that others will listen to it, and then scare the snake? But before Jean Grey could say anything, she suddenly noticed a hint of abnormality. The space around them rippled. An invisible stance enveloped the two, making them seem to be isolated from the world, and others could not hear their conversations. Suddenly, Jean Grey's body was shocked. She finally realized that Lin Fan had already discovered the monitor and responded. And this ability was something Lin Fan had never shown. For a while, Jean Grey became more and more shocked. Lin Fan was already very powerful, but she never expected that the other party still had so many whole cards. Looking at the group of superpowers she knew, no one could think of Lin Fan at all. Even Professor X and Magneto are no more. Jean Grey was very curious about Lin Fan's identity. With so many abilities, and even learning the abilities of others, could it be that Lin Fan is a mutant god? Lin Fan didn't know what Jean Grey thought, and he didn't want to know either. The two quickly boarded a plane to Egypt. And at the same time, Nick Fury, who was far away at the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D., also learned the situation for the first time. Egypt? And a woman? What is Lin Fan doing? Nick Fury was also very confused at this time. Earlier, he sent someone to follow Lin Fan, but there was an accident, and the agent directly lost the memory of the whole day. But through monitoring along the way, he still found Lin Fan's location. It was a privately founded boarding school. But Nick Fury knows that the school owner is very extraordinary, and even involved in the military. Inside the school, a large number of superpowered children are taken in. Among them are some powerful people. In one of his plans, these people are even on his solicitation list. Knowing that Lin Fan went to Xavier Genius Academy, Nick Fury thought that Lin Fan was from the academy. But he quickly dismissed the idea. The first is that Lin Fan has never appeared before, and the second is that Lin Fan's strength is too strong. Xavier Genius Academy will definitely not be able to cultivate such a strong person. Nick Fury had many doubts in his mind. Out of jealousy of Lin Fan, he asked people to continue to monitor the academy, and he must not let Lin Fan out of the scope of surveillance. Then he learned that Lin Fan had another woman beside him, named Jean Grey. The two also boarded a flight to Egypt. Mission lifted. Nick Fury gave the direct order to end the mission. Lin Fan's strength is unfathomable, he must have discovered that he was being watched, and the other party also made it clear that he deliberately played them. If this follow-up continues, there will be no useful information at all. On the contrary, it will cause some unnecessary misunderstandings. The agent whose memory was erased not long ago is the best proof of this. The consequences of angering Lin Fan were unimaginable. And Nick Fury also made up his mind that when the work at hand was over, he would talk to Tony Stark in person. Starting with Tony Stark, you may be able to know more about Lin Fan. At that time, you can also recruit 2 people to join the Avengers. Time flew by and the flight arrived in Egypt smoothly. Lin Fan and Jean Grey came to the pyramid. For this world-famous 7 Wonders building, Lin Fan was also curious. It is said that this is a signal source built by aliens. Originally, Lin Fan did not believe it. But in this special world, mutants and even aliens emerge endlessly, and this statement is not necessarily a rumor. Moreover, if the apocalypse exists, it is sealed inside the pyramid. Remember what looked like an abandoned pyramid? Recalling the original plot, Lin Fan began to look around the pyramid community with a curious baby like Jean Grey. Lin Fan, what are you looking for? Tell me about it, I can help you too. After looking for a long time, Jean Grey finally settled in Bamboo. She followed behind like a fool. If you know it's okay, but you don't know anything, it's really hard to hold on. Ahem. Lin Fan coughed lightly, a little embarrassed. He didn't expect it to be so hard to find. Even he had some doubts about the existence of the apocalypse. But thinking of the original plot, it was Jean who sensed the awakening of the apocalypse, maybe Jean could really help him. After a slight hesitation, Lin Fan said in a deep voice. Have you heard of the God of Mutants? Episode 58. God of Mutants? Hearing what Lin Fan said, Jean Grey suddenly became stupid. Shouldn't Lin Fan be telepathic? As soon as she suspected that the other party was the God of Mutants, Lin Fan suddenly revealed herself, making her a little inexplicable. But then she shook her head seriously and said. Haven't heard of it. But I think this should be just a rumor, right? Rumors? Sort of. Lin Fan shook his head with a smile and explained. Simply put, a long time ago, the first mutant was born in the world, and the ability is very powerful. He can plunder other people's superpowers and even transfer his own soul. This also makes this person almost immortal. It's a pity that during a certain rebirth ceremony, this person was betrayed by his subordinates, failed to reincarnate, and fell asleep. And the target of my trip is this guy who claims to be the God of Mutants. Soon, Lin Fan briefly described the situation. And he also said the man's name. Apocalypse? God of Mutants? Infinite rebirth? Plunder superpowers? Repeating Lin Fan's words, Jean Grey became numb. How did she feel so familiar? No matter how she looked at it, these rankings were too suitable for Lin Fan. Lin Fan's strength was so terrifying at a young age. The most important thing is that Lin Fan is suspected to be able to learn other people's superpowers. Case solved. Hammer it, okay. Lin Fan is the God of Mutants, infinitely reborn and resurrected again. So why did Lin Fan bring her over? Do you want to cheat money? I think it's also true, her superpower is also quite strong, and it is quite reasonable to be favored by Lin Fan, right? After some cranky thoughts, Jean Grey felt like she was on a thief's ship. She looked at Lin Fan with a worried expression. Hey, what are you thinking? Lin Fan was keenly aware of the change in Jean Grey's expression. Just after thinking about it for a while, he guessed that the other party had misunderstood something, and suddenly he didn't have a good air. If I were the apocalypse, I would have been able to plunder your superpowers a long time ago, so why wait until now? Can you have a little basic trust in me? Aha. Now it was Jean Grey's turn to be embarrassed. It seems to be right. When she was forced into a deep sleep, Lin Fan could have taken action against her. But it turned out that Lin Fan saved her instead. Suddenly she lowered her head embarrassedly, unable to speak. It was really embarrassing. Hey, tired, destroy. Lin Fan shook his head helplessly, and he didn't bother to care. But if you think about it, too. Judging by his performance, it is indeed easy to misunderstand. But he would never admit it. The color of the apocalypse is nothing but extraordinary ability, how can it be compared to his system? I'm sorry, Lin Fan, I didn't mean to misunderstand you. Jean Grey quickly apologized. Lin Fan waved his hand and said. Forget it, it's not a big deal, it doesn't matter. Thank you. Jean Grey nodded like a chicken pecking rice. At this time, seeing her so well behaved, how can there be Gao Lingfaner who used to be a royal sister? It is estimated that the Storm Girl has to wonder if she has been taken away when she sees it. I'll help you find it too. Jean Grey said, immediately releasing her spiritual stance. Her superpower is psychic. After receiving the blessing of the power of the Phoenix, the sensing range has been greatly improved, and it is simply suitable to find people at this time. Anything that is shrouded in her spiritual stance. Even the slightest mental fluctuation is not trying to escape her senses. Can you? Although Lin Fan was looking forward to it, he still didn't complain angrily. You must know that he learned the Wind Queen Gate. Although it is not as good as Jean Grey, but it can also exert the effect of radar scanning, he does not believe that the other party can be better than him. But before he could finish his sentence, Jean Grey suddenly exclaimed. I seem to have found. Looking at the ruins of the pyramid in front of him, Lin Fan was numb. Is this called plot inertia? He searched for a long time and found nothing. But as soon as Jean Grey made a move, she directly found the location of the sleeping place of the apocalypse, which was simply outrageous. However, after complaining, Lin Fan's eyes were burning at this time. God of mutants? Infinite rebirth? Ability plunder? I'm really looking forward to what surprises you can bring me. Thinking of the power of the apocalypse, he immediately no longer had any hesitation. He wants to see the strength of the mutant god today. Jean, be careful yourself. Reminded Jean Gallet, Lin Fan's heart moved, and the magnetic field around him suddenly surged. The ruins in front of the two were directly excavated by the invisible big hand. In the blink of an eye, the ruins of the pyramid that have collapsed for thousands of years are showing a downward staircase. And from 100 meters deep underground, a strange spiritual fluctuation quietly emanated. If you don't sense it carefully, you can't detect it at all. Let's go. Lin Fan said, and walked directly into it first. Jean Grey tried to stop it, but was too late. In the face of such an unknown place, and even the guys who are suspected of being the gods of mutants are still sleeping, are they sure they don't need to be careful? But seeing that Lin Fan had all gone in, she could only hurriedly chase after her. The two soon waited in an underground palace. And with the intrusion of the two, the coffin of the underground palace loyalty suddenly trembled, exuding an extremely terrifying power. Ants. Your god is back. Episode 59. Boom. With the sound of the sound, the underground palace trembled. The surrounding walls tumbled with rubble. And in the dark underground palace, a fear of death surged in her heart, making Jean Grey's pretty face more and more solemn. Lin Fan, shall we leave here first? She hurriedly persuaded Lin Fan. Let's go. Lin Fan nodded and said indifferently. Someone's getting up is a little angry, let's go up there and wait for him. The Jean Grey people are stupid. But at this time, she couldn't care too much, and quickly used her ability to resist the splash of rubble around her. The two soon returned to the ground. And almost at the same time, thundered. The underground palace where the two were still in a moment ago collapsed, and a deep pit appeared. Jean Grey covered her mouth with a palpitation and exclaimed. This? He shouldn't have been smashed to death, right? Definitely not. Lin Fan spoke indifferently. Although the god of mutants is only self-proclaimed, he will never die so easily. If that's the case, then he's going to die of laughter. Bang! At this moment, an explosion sounded. Boulders splashed in the pit, and a man in tattered clothes leaped out, standing in the air like a god. His head was slightly raised, and his arms were outstretched, as if he was enjoying rare freedom. A terrifying power quietly surged out from around him. The originally calm void rippled, and even twisted slightly, as if under great pressure. Feeling this might, Jean Grey's body tensed. The threat of death welled up in her heart. If there were still doubts before, but now feeling the coercion emanating from the apocalypse, she finally believed that this mutant god was terrible. But at this time, in Lin Fan's eyes, there was a flash of joy at seeing his prey. Huh, apocalypse? It's really arrogant. Lin Fan chuckled, without the slightest hint of nervousness. And his words were also listened to by Jean Grey. But before she could say anything, a sharp gaze suddenly projected, as cold and piercing as a sharp sword. Jean Grey suddenly felt great pressure, and the whole person was extremely nervous. The power in her body also subconsciously became crazy and restless. Once the heavenly enlightenment attacks, she will immediately strike back or resist. Mortal, say your name. The apocalypse looked down condescendingly at Lin Fan and Jean Grey. He didn't put Lin Fan in his eyes at all. Because in his induction, Lin Fan was just a weak superpower, and he couldn't even compare to the 4 knights under him. Only Jean Grey, beside Lin Fan, surprised him slightly. First of all, Jean Grey is a woman. And she is a very beautiful woman, with good looks and temperament. Secondly, Jean Grey is very strong. Even the 4 knights under him, once underwhelmed it, were estimated that they could not even catch 10 moves in front of Jean Grey. This immediately made him interested, and his eyes flashed with a hot light. He announced that this woman was his queen. As long as he plunders Jean Grey's ability, he can not only recover completely, but even get a beautiful queen. As for Lin Fan? For his sake, he just woke up, so he took it as a slave. This guy is really annoying. Feeling the undisguised gaze of the apocalypse, Jean Grey's eyes were full of disgust. At this time, she hated to beat the apocalypse explosion. But knowing the gap in strength between the two sides, unless she is reckless of the consequences, she really has nothing to do with the other party. Want to know my name? Oh, you deserve the apocalypse too? At this moment, Lin Fan's indifferent voice sounded. He looked coldly at where the apocalypse was, and said, I don't like to look up and talk to people. So, can you please get out of here? Ha, stupid mortal. Apocalypse laughed unbridled. But before he could open his mouth to mock, he suddenly felt a huge force coming, and the magnetic field like a mountain poured down. Defenseless, he was directly smashed to the ground. Even the ground was directly smashed out of a human-shaped pit. Shoo! Seeing this, Jean Grey was immediately shocked, beyond belief. Was Lin Fan so powerful? I thought that dealing with the Black Phoenix before was already Lin Fan's limit, but I didn't expect that Lin Fan was still hiding his strength. Even in the face of the apocalypse, Lin Fan could gain the upper hand. Bastard! Are you looking for death? Angry to the point of hoarse voice resounded in the sky. Immediately after the ground exploded, the figure of the heavenly apocalypse jumped up and shot straight towards Lin Fan. With a wave of his big hand, the endless thunder in the sky suddenly descended. The sky that was originally bright suddenly dimmed. A terrifying cloud emerged, and endless thunder descended like a thunder calamity, wanting to kill Lin Fan, who dared to blaspheme. Not good. Lin Fan, be careful. Jean Grey was shocked and quickly wanted to help. The strength of the apocalypse is simply terrifying. But in the face of the attack of the apocalypse, her reaction was one step slower, and she could only watch the thunder land. And Lin Fan, who stood silently in place, seemed to be frightened and stupid. But around him, an invisible position emerged. After the wind, the field is self-revealed. Ding, the host fiercely fights the mutant god Apocalypse, and the anti-heavenly understanding bursts out, creating. Episode 60. Ding, the host bursts out against the sky and 5 elements, and I feel something. Ding, congratulations to the host bloodline for the extreme sublimation, and the god-level bloodline has been promoted to superhuman bloodline. The IC system prompt sounded quietly. And when he heard the system prompt, Lin Fan was pleasantly surprised. Superhuman bloodline? For a moment, Lin Fan only felt ecstasy in his heart. Originally, with his nature, no matter how much reward he had, it would only give him a new ability. But he never expected that in the end, he would be promoted by bloodline. And it's also extremely sublimated into a superhuman bloodline. Lin Fan didn't know if there was a superhuman race in this world. But in another world, Superman is the most powerful being, with the power to destroy the world and even reverse time and space. Of course, that was the case when the superhuman bloodline was developed to the extreme. Purely in terms of universality. Superman's bloodline first awakened, at most, it had a body of steel, laser eyes, flight, and perspective eyes. Unless the sun becomes stronger to a certain extent, it is also the level of Thanos. Finally get rid of the title of the bloodline of the apocalypse. Feeling the powerful power in his body, Lin Fan's eyes flashed. He flew directly up and bathed in thunder. Superman can absorb solar radiation to strengthen the bloodline, and thunder is naturally not a problem. Lin Fan was enjoying the thunder bath like a thunder god at this time. Evolved from the Apocalypse bloodline to the superhuman bloodline, not to mention how much the strength has improved, just not being with the Apocalypse lineage. Lin Fan is very satisfied. Speaking of which, he still has to thank the other party for sending him such a big gift. In that case, let me send you to die. You can also try the ability to detain the spirit general. Thinking so in his heart, the magnetic field around Lin Fan's body surged wildly. Instead, those thunders swirled around his body under his control, suddenly turning into a hideous thunder dragon. Roar, roar, roar. The heaven-shaking dragon groaned loudly, as if a reckless beast had come out of the distant period. Jean Grey below was already stunned by this scene. Including Apocalypse himself, he is also a pupil tremor. How is that possible? How could this humble ant be so strong? Lin Fan's sudden display of strength was shocking. Originally, he regarded Lin Fan as an ant's apocalypse, but he suddenly felt that his heart was shaking, and he couldn't believe what he saw in front of him. You must know that even he could not manipulate lightning so meticulously. Not to mention that it was still an offensive condensed by the enemy. Turning enemy attacks into star shifts, or even transforming and enhancing them, is a completely magical means. Looking at Lin Fan again at this time, his gaze was full of solemnity and jealousy. Lin Fan is not to be underestimated. Go. Lin Fan spoke indifferently and flicked his fingers. The thunder dragon roared out, accompanied by a burst of dragon groans, and crashed straight towards the Apocalypse. The terrifying power was like a dragon's power, causing the surrounding air to twist. Just in an instant, the thunder dragon was deceived. The blood basin was glowing with electric light, directly towards the Apocalypse, and the raging thunder frantically eroded the body of the Apocalypse. Humph. Me. Apocalypse's face was ugly, and he shouted angrily. Suddenly, the surrounding space was distorted, and a solid position-like position quietly emerged. All the thunder and lightning were immediately isolated from the outside. Unlike Lin Fan's magnetic field control, the move of the Apocalypse is a super stance with impenetrable characteristics. Unless it is so strong that it breaks 10,000 laws with one force, it will not break the defense at all. At this time, Apocalypse was using this move to deal with Lin Fan. From a purely visual point of view, Jean Grey is completely unable to distinguish between strong and weak. But no doubt. Whether it was Lin Fan or Tianchi, she couldn't beat it. Lin Fan, you must be careful. Jean Grey prayed silently in her heart. She really wanted to help, but she knew better how many pounds she had, and making a rash move would only cause trouble for Lin Fan. So at this time, she could only watch, hoping that Lin Fan could defeat the Apocalypse. Buzz. Boom. At this moment, a violent collision sounded. Under Jean Grey's shocked gaze, Lin Fan and Apocalypse collided fiercely, and both sides erupted with terrifying power. Various terrifying attacks poured madly towards each other. The two did not have the slightest reservation. And in the process of fighting, the Apocalypse continued to approach Lin Fan, and the speed even exceeded the speed of sound. In the blink of an eye, the Apocalypse has already arrived. Lin Fan froze in place as if he hadn't reacted. Ants, die. The Apocalypse suddenly appeared behind Lin Fan, and a hideous smile rose at the corner of his mouth. His eyes flashed with fanatical greed. The strong strength that Lin Fan displayed was indeed beyond his expectations, but that was all. He can survive for thousands of years, not only by combat effectiveness. Infinite rebirth and ability transfer are his whole cards. There were countless superpowers that eventually became nourishment for him to become stronger, and even became a tool for his rebirth. And he is going to repeat his old trick today. Taking advantage of Lin Fan's resistance to the attack, he rushed over and raised his hand to cover Lin Fan's back. A black hole-like devouring force roared out directly. Jean Grey's phoenix eyes shook dramatically, and exclaimed. Not good. Lin Fan, be careful.